obviously there were a great number of people that went out and protested. I protested in two march. Those are peaceful march. But we got to find some way of looking at this thing in a different way. We can't keep repeating the same things and expect the same result. I hope that as we talk about this stuff, we get a little bit more into depth in terms of is it really working? And if it's working, how come we can't stop the war? And if it's not working, is there any other ways that we do that? So to answer that question, yes, Casey, I think there is movement, and with the proliferation of the emails and the internet and stuff, I think we're more connected now. So I think yes, but I am not convinced that it is more effective than in the past.
Thank you. I believe Oregon is the best state for promoting for peace. They have a lot of movements here. But people to be promoting for peace, they have to feel the suffering of others. You cannot just hear the suffering from other people and just walk away. You have to join the experience, not to suffer like them, but to feel their pain. That's what drive you more forward and encourage you to promote for peace further. I don't want anybody walk from here tonight and just forget what they hear. Because it's easy. Being in a capitalist country, systems make you busy. Paying bills, work hard, try to afford for living. Those all factors make it hard for people to find time to promote for peace. We need your time. People in Iraq, they need your time. People in Cambodia, they need your time. People in Palestine as well, in Darfur, everywhere. There's a great conflict resolution program at Portland State University. And I joined this program to learn how to promote for peace and to be part of it. I joined the CIO. I'm ready to join any organization here by promoting for peace and share my experience and help others to promote for peace as well. Thank you.
I agree with Wada and what he was saying. The peace movement in Portland, it is great. And that's why I was thinking to come and stay in Portland, because I made a tour around the states. And I noticed people here more interested and sensitive. And I do agree with him. If you hear something, you have to decide what to do next. It's not suitable for me to come every time and to talk. It's not suitable for me to come and talk and go and not get reactions from people. I do want to see your reactions after this meeting. I hope. Thank you.
Next question. My undergrad degree is in computer science. I work with computers, and I start having conflict with it. So I said to myself, I love social work. That's why I joined the CIO. I love to promote for peace. And materialist things is not a way to promote for peace. I mean, loving making money, get materialistic. If we stay away from it, I believe we can find time for peace.
I think I'm going to pose to the question to the audience. Do we think there's a peace movement in Oregon and the United States? And do you agree with the statement that the President said, and what do you think?
Yeah, I do agree with all the speakers. I think there is a peace movement here in Portland and throughout the United States. I'm with Veterans for Peace. But one of the major problems, as you suggested, was that we can march in the streets and there's no demands. They just demand to end the war, but there are a lot of demands that could be made. And one of the things that I found in trying to bring people together and organizing for peace and to end this war is that we have different agendas. We have different things. We're talking about Cambodia, we're talking about Palestine, we're talking about Iraq, we're talking about Darfur, and we still don't get to the meat of the problem. And the meat of the problem is the system, which you mentioned, the idea of capitalism and imperialism. And really we're talking about imperialism across this continent and across the, around the world. And one of the things that this is about class war, it's about racism, and it's about power. And one of the things that I think that is important is I've been trying to get labor involved. Labor is one of the key issues to get people involved in this movement. And every time I talk to the leaders within the labor movement, they're squeamish about talking to their general population. But it doesn't make any sense to me, because if we have tens of millions of people in the street saying they're against this war and coming out in demonstration after demonstration, who do they think those people are? They're workers. The majority of those people are working class people. So I don't know what the problem is, why they're so timid about it. But if workers could organize, and if your leaders aren't doing it in your unions, I think that workers themselves have to do that. And a general strike in this country could end most of the problems that are dealing with the war, because it's all about them making money. And when you stop production in this country, in Iraq, in Palestine, in other places, they shut down the roads. They stop traffic, they stop business, and they make things happen. And they win some demands, they lose some demands, and they bring out forces. But if labor can get itself as act together with the rest of the peace community, we can end a lot of these problems. Thank you.
So before I move to the next question, is there anyone else? Yes, please. Can you come forward? Can you make, if you want to respond to the question?
I can speak from here.
Please, go ahead.
Yeah, about the peace movement. I have been a peace advocate since even the beginning of the invasion and occupation of Iraq. And I've been an independent activist and advocate. There is a peace movement, and it needs to become deeper and wider, and a deeper understanding of what peace is. And the way I have understood it after thinking about it for the last 4 years is that we have to deeply recognize that we are all equal in the eyes of the law and the eyes of God, or whoever you consider as the supernatural power. And the idea of equality is what I think brings about the deeper understanding of peace. Because when we know that we are equal, that is an understanding that we cannot attack, invade, and get into other people's territories. This is the basic understanding. And I have come across several people in the peace movement who get into a lot of conflicts themselves. And also, conflict doesn't take two. You can have conflict within yourself. So if you have not examined your inner conflicts, you are radiating that conflict to others. So there is a metaphysical aspect of peace that needs to be understood. And in order to connect it, I'll say respect leads to equality. It leads to the understanding of democracy. It leads to justice and accountability, and it leads to peace. So this is the connection that I have made, and the US has tremendous power to do great harm and great good. Right now, it is, you know what the situation is. But we have the opportunity to make this transformation. I came here 14 years back, and a whole lot of what I know and what I've learned here. So the education is there. The implementation has to be done.
Too good at this, but I have to say something.
Please.
I think there's I didn't feel any peace in here tonight. I felt a lot of pain in people, a lot of suffering, and a lot of blame and finger pointing. We can't have, quote, peace when we don't understand it, when we don't understand. It's a human problem. We can't tolerate each other. I am white. The worst virus, white male today, is thought of in many conflict resolution classes as a virus. I sit there in total defense. The fact that I'm Jewish, oh my God, so I live in fear, and I'm old, and there's ageism, I'm invisible. No one cares about what I say here tonight.
I do.
Because he knows me. And he likes me. And I have a good dog. I think we have to understand that we're talking nationalism. We're not talking peace. We're not talking tolerance. Maybe we can't love each other. Maybe we can't, but maybe we can have a little mercy with each other. Maybe equality is just beyond, it's an ideal. These are ideals we're looking for. What we are is what you see. And we have to deal with what we see. And every moment of every day, human beings want power over others and profit over others. I don't know if there's really any pure relationship, except my closest is with my dog because there's one ego. And she's nicer than me. We have to look at what it means to be human and understand that the challenge is to rise above our ideals, our nationalities. You're Iraqi, you're Palestinian. I am very fortunate to have the privilege of never being physically in that situation, even though I was born into it while it was happening. And they'll get me again if they could. All of us, if they could. So for all, let's not call it peace because we don't know what it is. Let's call it something bigger. Working towards our ideals that we know we have to constantly be challenged by. Thanks.
I'm going to move to the next question. And the next question is, as an immigrant and refugee, what do you think that the strength and the weaknesses of the Oregon peace movement? And I think some of them has been mentioned already. But in your own words, what do you think the strength and the weaknesses of the Oregon United States peace movement is?
I get to go first again? Okay, that'll be fine. My experience with the peace movement is, it's about the same the last 20 years. It's the same golf swing, it's the same expectation that the ball would go in the hole someday. Started in Vietnam War, well, it probably made some difference just in that and stuff, but I really don't think we really capitalize on the effort of the peace movement. Every time when we talk about peace movement, what's come to your mind? When somebody said, let's join the peace movement, what comes to your mind?
Anti-war.
Anti-war, marching on the street, right? Let's take a look at the solution, some of these things and say, okay, well, we've been doing that. Is it working, right? Well, to some degree, yes, it's working. In my opinion, I don't think it's working as well as it should be. Right? It's happening all around the world. We went out en masse to protest and in silence, very peaceful. That was one of the best march I've done in protesting around the world, not just in the United States. very constructive, yet it wasn't effective, right? They're going to do what they're going to do. So what you need to do, what we need to do, is to figure out, well, what are some of the things that we need to do to get people more inclusive? Well, first of all, when you talk about one mole, you're not going to be able to get everybody to march in the same beat, right? Just right here, we got Iraqi, Palestinian, Cambodian, and then we got a Jew who thinks he's a virus. That's good. I'm glad we didn't shake hands. But we got to find a way to accommodate all these diversity, right? Let's say, for example, okay, great, the left hand wants to march. Let's let the left hand march. Somebody else got to figure something else so that you cover the entire base. If people don't come to you, you go to them. Take your story to them. Why does it matter what political affiliation they're in? Why does it matter what class they're in? Why does it matter whether they're virus or not? Right? Take your story to them. That is the only way you're going to gain their trust, going to gain their compassion, going to gain their understanding. If you're going to yell from the street, granted, it is effective, but it's not 100% effective. There's still a little bit of room there, right? If they're not going to listen to you, they're not going to listen to you. They're going to close the door. You got to find a way to get inside, have a cup of coffee, and bring your story to them, right? I give you an example. I had a friend, very passionate about this war, about peace and all that stuff, assuming we understand what definition is, excuse me. So we went to dinner and we talked about this stuff, and I wanted to understand some stuff, and boy, the voice come out is kind of like, yeah, Can you imagine how many people we turn away by doing that? We got to stop doing that. We got to hold peace within ourselves to a higher standard. When we disagree with people, nod your head, pay attention, listen to discuss, right? Listen to hear, not listen to talk. Often we do that. Even the most peace lover do that. So those are some of the things. I can name a zillion other things, but I think those are good examples that we can take away with. Start here, within ourselves, right? Imagine today, all right, we're talking about peace. How many of us here? How many people in the entire world? That's a great movement. That's just a tiny virus. We need more viruses, right? So imagine if you leave today, you touch 10 people in some way. It doesn't matter what you do. You could just go play poker with them or whatever. But if you reach out to 10 people and they know that you're a peace lover, maybe they don't agree with you. Well, fine, then don't talk about the disagreement. Let's just talk about things that we can agree on. And then eventually they're going to realize that, you know what? You guys are all right. Maybe there is something to peace, right? So live it rather than talk about it. Live it, spread it, share it, and exercise it. So those are just an example. I can go all night about this.
I believe, 5 years ago when I made a speech, I have less crowd. And today, I'm really pleased with the audience and how many people are there. Is it because of my speech or because of Bush policy? But I know the Americans, they became very aware. Awareness, and they became more advocate for peace. The only weakness is people have to go more abroad and travel overseas and stop consuming too much.
These are water, by the way.
I was a refugee and an immigrant of this country, and I was involved with many people and many organizations of the peace movement. I was in D.C., and I don't want to mention any names. I was working with an organization that everybody they call them hero. But I was really shocked when I wanted to talk about what was happening to Iraqi children and how can we help them. They ignore this issue, and they wanted to just use me as something they could carry and let me go here and there in the Senate building and talk to some Congress people because I'm a Iraqi person. They just wanted to use me as object. And it hurts. Peace doesn't necessarily mean to demonstrate and organize big rallies in the streets. It doesn't require that. If you could give a bread to someone, that means peace. It's not necessary that we go demonstrate and plug the streets and cause a problem with the police and then get arrested and stay in the prison. It's not necessary. So it's my experience as a new person in this community that peace movement and peace people, sometimes they have different goals. And it is sad because they have to agree to each other when they decide to go somewhere. There should be one goal, not 10 goals. And I hope they can work more organized in the future.
We turn around, what are the strengths and the weaknesses of the Oregon peace movement and the United States peace movement, if anyone wants to respond from the audience? I have over there, I have a hand over there. Amy, you want to come forward? If you want to make comments, please come forward so we can use the mic so people can hear you. So just if you line up here in the middle, that will be helpful so we can proceed the process. We just have some technical issues tonight. So.
I'm a Filipino immigrant, and the Philippines has also been touched by America's colonial aggression. And I think one of the strengths of the American peace movement is that it's still here. It endures, it persists, it continues, and it recognizes that human suffering continues. I think its weakness is that, as the gentleman said earlier, it really needs to deepen its understanding of peace. Because where peace requires justice. And justice needs to be economic, needs to be broad and touch every aspect of people's lives. So I think as we work towards ending military violence, we also need to end the unfair trade policies that we inflict on other countries, the poverty that we create in other regions, the suffering in other countries that we are complicit in by supporting their regimes. So I think unless we begin to see the intersections with the other social justice movements, peace movement will continue to be in its silo and not be able to move forward.
Yeah, go ahead. I'll respond to that.
Yeah, I also think that peace comes from education, because when you tell your stories, the part that I find just eye-popping, jaw-dropping is the ignorance of my fellow citizens as Americans. I remember a couple of years ago, several years ago with the death of Princess Diana, I was talking to some British people, and we just got into a conversation about how we became Americans and the British, the redcoats are coming, and they looked at me and said, "What are you talking about? We allowed you your freedom. We allowed you to come to the United States and do all that you did." And I'm finding that our history books influence how we're educated. I think there's already a dilemma going on as far as our education and what our kids are being taught. I think if you talk to people, if you listen to their personal stories and you understand, I think a self-introspection will kind of create a natural evolution towards wanting to be peaceful, wanting to understand the components of what it means to be peaceful, as opposed to just these different ideologies of what you think you were taught. Because your understanding of one situation may be someone else's different understanding. Palestinian position, Jewish position. I mean, we can go on for days. So I think the conversation can best be stimulated by education and by you going out, talking to people, finding out on your own. You may think you've read something online or you've learned it in your books. That may have its place, but I think understanding will come from traveling, coming to places like this. A few of my friends, I offered them to come to this symposium, and their reaction, and these are like Fletcher School of Law and Diplomacy majors, and they were very, well, you know, I already understand the situation. My efforts can better be served by, I don't know, I don't need to be going to this symposium. And there's a kind of erudite, arrogance that I think some of us have. As Americans, speaking only as Americans, because I've traveled across this great country of ours, and I've talked to a lot of Americans, and that's the thing that I think keeps us from pushing towards peace, and that's being able to say, you know, I don't know everything. And I would like to talk to someone who's from a different perspective, from a different country. And I think that will move you towards maybe wanting to have peace.
Thank you.
I just have a question.
Oh, sorry.
I'm not very good at this, but I wanted to make a practical suggestion, not an intellectual one. And the idea is based on the Vietnam War, where I marched and marched and marched, that a problem is there are many people in this country who are waiting to march, but they don't know where the march is, and I guess we have to deal with organizers. The body politic has been painted as, well, laid back, and now it's sort of getting into the situation of peace. But I know many people who are waiting for a march for peace, because when they march, and I give myself an example, you know you're not alone. And in marches, as we well know, but on the Mall, with 1 million people marching, Vietnam, and including before Iraq War, it was a mixture of children, parents, old people like me, and middle-aged, and students. And my point is that I need to be organized. And I have to add, I don't have a computer, so that I missed a march here. But we have to think of people who do not have a computer, so the newspaper should be contacted to tell me that there is a march coming up. This is very practical, and it doesn't, solve all problems of peace. But I really believe that the Vietnam War, the marches, influenced Johnson. We had marches every week in Washington, D.C., and I'm sure it spread across the country over a period of years. So my whole point, again, to repeat, is let's get out on the streets. Let us have more marches. I'm willing to march anytime I'm told there's a march. So it is a practical idea. And I don't know, except for Move On or whatever, who is having the next march? Who is having the next march?
Can you speak out here in the organizing committee at Portland Police will respond?
Dan, you want to respond to that?
I'm not actually with Portland Police response, but are you talking about the marches that's happening on Saturday?
What group is that?
Well, there's a bunch of groups, including Peace and Justice Works, my group. There were like 50 or 60 groups that helped make that happen. So I'm not sure what you have a specific question.
No, I just wondered if they were representative. They've been invited and they're coming to this also. Yeah. And I was wondering, there's a lot of movement around the Hispanic immigration movement. They were really getting people out in the street. I was wondering if there could be any cross-pollination between different agendas. Like the immigration movement.
You are going to the
it's a non-racist movement also.
Right, you're one step ahead of me.
Okay.
So we're going to go there. Kilong, do you have a comment?
Well, regarding the experience, I think, you know, you're talking about organizing march and all that kind of stuff. It's the same things. You do it, and then people, it's not sustainable, okay? So let's say, take Casey, for example. Will Casey be consistently this active for the rest of his life? Maybe Casey is. But some people get their life changed, their priority changed. So they come and go. The people who go will take away the know-how, the knowledge, the history of it with them. And the new people come in trying to figure it out. Again, well, many of us in this room right now are the new people. We're reinventing the wheel again. So the cycle keeps repeating. There's war, there's march, there's war, there's march. A lot of time, yes, the Vietnam War march was effective, I agree with you. But we need to do better than just stopping the war. We need to stop the war from starting. That's what we need to do. We need to do preventive maintenance. Okay, let me ask you this. How does business grow? Let's talk about Nike. How does Nike grow from selling pairs of shoes from the garage to where it is today?
They get government support in going into different countries and negotiate those contracts for them.
Very well be, but I can tell you this for sure. They have a business model. Peace movement does not have a model, right? It needs to have a model. Look at all the puzzle pieces, what's missing, what's working, what's not working, and how do you keep it sustainable? Keep at the same pressure. Yes, we go march in one weekend. We're going to march again the next war. Well, you know what? I've already marched that war. I can't fight another war, right? So how do we keep that sustainable, that business model, so that it grow like the business? Not in a business way, but how do we keep peace movement sustainable and grow? That's where we need to do. You know, organizer today will be gone tomorrow. We have no history left. There's nothing handed over. It needs to be better organized. Some foundation needs to start looking at that. There's any foundation in here? Don't raise your hand. But we need to invest in something like that where we can actually have a business model, take a look at it, analyze it, treat it seriously. It's not a hobby. If you want to do this seriously, if you care enough that you come in here and cry about it, and then don't treat it like a hobby. It's not one day, yeah, I go, you know, go hiking and then I'll be fine. When I was at Reed College, one of my dorm mates asked me to fast. I said, well, you know, we need to empathize with you know, fellow Muslims or whatever, you know, with our friends, Palestinian friends, even back then in the 80s. Well, I wasn't about to fast. I starved for 5 years, right? So he made me feel guilty about it. But think about this. Is he fasting today? Probably not. He's probably a CEO of some company, right? That's what I'm trying to tell you. It's not sustainable. Peace movement to a lot of people, it's just a hobby, just something so that they feel good today and they can move on to the next day. Okay? And that, I'm guilty of that as any one of you in here. There's nobody consistently...
See, I don't agree with you there. I
okay.
mean, I think there needs to be a debate when you say something like that.
Then that's just fine. I had said the things,
right,
and I will
right.
open the floor for you, and you can make your point.
I needed to say that.
Yes, exactly. So if anybody wants to counter offer opinion on that, I would be. The idea is to get us to think about that and generate some discussion so that we think outside the box. Right now, I think we're thinking inside the box.
Yeah, I actually have a Gudar on the back, and then I will come back to you. And then I have one more last question before. Actually, I have here, yeah. So let's start from you. I think you raised before Kudar, and then I'll go to Kudar, and then I'll go to you. Kudar, you want to come forward, please?
Here, there are some discussion about comparing what's happening today with Vietnam War. One thing that's missing in this comparison is that Vietnam War was based on a draft. This war is a class war. Majority of people are not really feeling the pain of the war. And the next war is going to be Blackwater War. So you're not even seeing it in your neighborhood because they're going to be coming from Chile and outsourcing, as he was suggesting. The war will be outsourced. It's the war of the capitalism. It's war of the corporation. It's war for the oil. The Vietnam War, you had John Kerry type from an influential family who could get into Senate or the Congress to talk about it. Today, the people who are fighting there are either Hispanic or black or from poor families, that they don't have any voice in this country anymore. So these are the realities of the war. I mean, we can all go out and have a yoga session, but that's not going to change the world. I'm sorry.
Thank you, Kudar.
I think for people of my generation, there's a certain amount of longing still for, seeing people, the social change actually be visible. But I've been thinking about this for quite a while, and I'm thinking that I wanted to share several quotes. They're not at all original, but I hope that, maybe by saying these things, maybe people can kind of ruminate on them. One is, I think it's probably floating around now, people have heard that we need to be the change we want to see in the world, that it does start with us. And I really appreciate the wisdom of all the panelists that have shared what they have with us. That we need to be the change. We are the leaders that we've been waiting for. And I think this is from Einstein. That I've seen it attributed to Einstein, that a problem can never be solved at the level of consciousness that created it. And when I heard that, I just thought, oh, right. That is one of the difficulties that I think we keep stumbling up against, we keep tripping ourselves up against, is thinking that we're going to be fighting fire with fire. And we have to, there has to be a paradigm shift. We have to move up and beyond, the tit for tat. And there was one more thing. Peter Gabriel. Cynicism is a luxury we cannot afford.
Thank you. Go ahead, please.
I just want to reiterate what our brother said. Peace is not a joke. It requires some practical decision, practical action, and it is a business. It has to be actualized. And I'll give you a little brief example. I'm from Liberia, West Africa. And been in the Civil War for 10 years. There were a combination of peace groups that were protesting against government action to massacre a particular group of people. And we took the responsibility to protect those people by grouping them into a local church. We took the responsibility every night to provide shelter and security for them. Before the government troop could get to them, you have to pass through us. We have no arm, but we sacrifice our lives. So advocate for peace, voice sometimes becomes inadequate. And I get 10 emails a day from peace group within this community. But what I look for in the email, what action are we practicalizing? It's just the voice. I can guarantee you, government, politicians, they are very good at intimidating our peace voice. Until we actualize it, and practicalize it, we go nowhere. So I just want to reiterate of our brother comment that he just made and our sister comment. We need to understand what Iraqi mean by peace. We need to understand what the Palestinians mean by peace. And we need to reconstruct our idea within this society, what our understanding of peace in the context of the Iraqi people, and not as Americans.
Thank you. Go ahead, please.
I just want to thank everyone for being here. This is fantastic. What I want to do is I want to invite people. I'm the chairman for the Faith Caucus of the Democratic Party. I started this last year. And it's not just religious groups. We have atheists, agnostics, humanists, all kinds of people. And I really, as the chairman, I want the peace movement involved in my caucus. And I want peace movement. I want people from Africa and I want people from Cambodia to be involved with me, because what we're doing is causing direct action directly to politicians. What we're trying to do is introduce listening parties so we can get this group right here and actually bring politicians to that table so they have to hear our concerns, so they know that the concerns aren't just, schools and jobs and taxes. That peace has to become one of the major concerns politically, and also in the media. It should be discussed in the media. I have an agency called Progressive Media Agency, and I'm trying to formulate what you guys are all talking about as far as finding a brand for peace or some way of talking about this, because unfortunately none of us own NBC. But I believe we'll get there. And I think it's people like here in this room that need to get out there and get involved in whatever, whether you own a coffee shop, whether you read the paper and need to respond in an editorial. We don't own the media, so we have to hold the media accountable whenever you hear something that's unacceptable to you. Right now in America, they've taken the drama that was raised in movies and they've brought it into the political world called AM radio. So you have left and right talking against each other, and it creates great drama, because that's what they want to do, but they're not talking about reality. And reality is not left and right, reality is not black and white, it's gray, and it's complex. And that's the issue with the peace movement. It's a complex issue. It's multicultural, multi-class, and I think the thing is that people need to really try to come together when they hear voices, political, on TV, editorial, and respond and make peace this #1 issue. And they have to get involved in the media somehow. You've got to call when you hear a guy talking on the radio, like Lars Larson, or anyone like that. You need to really put the pressure because they really respond. And also another thing I learned, don't fax your politician. Don't write a letter. Call. It's worth about 1,000 people.
Thank you.
Call directly to their numbers. It's always very easy to pick up the phone. They don't care about faxes anymore because computers do that.
Thank you.
I want to say something to Zahra. Zahra is so tired.
Sorry, if anyone wants to join, they can go to the DPO website and look under faith communities. My email and number on Enrique Arias. Please contact me because I want the peace movement to become part of my life.
Thank you. Yeah, and one final question, then we'll wrap it up. I actually have the last question, which is actually the meat of the tonight, which basically there are many voices in the community who believe that we should unite in an anti-war movement. I think we talked about this. Others are working for justice at home and abroad. There are still other community members who hope to direct the movement to focus toward the articulated vision of peace. Immigrant and refugees marched streets in millions in 2005 and 2006. So the question is, what's your assessment? How can we move together toward the common goal for peace? And I think we have a lot of discussion came out, but the final touch, what I'm posing to the panelists for final and to you audience also is that we have been here. We have all of us seen this kind of conversations that we had tonight. We talked. The question is that, what is the strategy that we need as a community in order to move beyond war? And I have to admit, I travel a great deal in this country. Majority of this country is not in Portland. It's not in our cities in Portland. We are far away. Majority of this country, 60% live in rural community. And I have to admit, they have a different vision than you and I have. So the question I'm posing to you, how could we get them? How could we expand? How could we make a space? Immigrants and refugees. How could we make a collective efforts with the great peace movement that we have in Oregon so we can expand and reach out the efforts of the immigrant refugee community, the rural community, and that's where the question is, and I will stop there, give a few minutes if anyone wants to respond to that question, and then we have the final comment for closing and announcements.
Do I go in first? Okay. I like going first. Gotta let me do the follow-up though. Okay, Casey, I think the goal is there, and to say that we don't have a common goal, I have to challenge that, because I do believe we have a common goal, that is peace. We want peace and harmony, and we want people to live in a decent world, a good world, right? We want peace. There is a goal. What we're lacking is common methods. And in some way, our success comes from our effort to unite those methods. And in some way, that turned out to be our failure as well, because we're trying so hard to unite a method. In other words, well, you know, if we march, we all should march. And if we're all going to call the congressman, we all should call the congressman. And if we're, you know, et cetera, et cetera. When you trying to come up with one method, one means and way of doing things, you cannot be inclusive. Because everybody believes their way is the right way to do. Some people may think, yeah, organizing and do these things might be right. The other may say, well, what if I do one person at a time? You know, and the people who like to move in mass and say, well, you know, one person at a time isn't going to make a difference, right? So what we need to do is to embrace the diversity, embrace all these, right? We have all these things, and imagine that, okay? We can all march. If everybody march in the street, guess what we're missing? Look at all the opportunity we're missing. You're missing the influence, the political influence to the Congress. You're going to missing the pressure on the people that manufacture weapons and bombs and airplanes. Imagine that, right? If we all march on the street, we're going to miss the opportunity to be professors and educate people at school, right? So embrace this diversity and manage it from a business model. Put all the puzzles together and say, okay, here are all the pieces that could move us together toward a common goal. So we have a goal. I don't believe we don't have a goal. A common goal we do have. We just have different means and different desire to achieve that goal. And we also have to look at how do we accommodate the people that just do it a little bit and go away. You know, the cycle or whatever. But until we understand, until we make this a serious business, create a business model, monitor it, measure it, you know, find ways to progress, I think we're going to just repeat the cycle. We'll keep doing the same golf swing and expect the ball to go in the hole. So that's my take on it.
Thank you. I think we can achieve our goals by getting the immigrants involved with the political and social system. Let them speak on their behalf. Let them be part of it. Because they know their situation better than the local. don't know, it's local, everybody is immigrants. Building leadership within the immigrants and refugees, and building community organizers so they can organize, and build the bridges between the immigrants and the locals, understand their suffering and where they come from. There's a lot of immigrants, they are undocumented, they cannot come and speak up. They will face deportations. Their English is not their first language. They struggle expressing themselves. So by educating the immigrants and refugees, by letting them speak on their behalf, but get them involved in the systems, I think they can present themselves better than anybody else. Thank you.
Go ahead, last comment. I said we needed a little bit of a debate, and the only thing that I was really wanted to debate was the idea that the peace movement, that people are doing it as a hobby. In this room, I see a lot of people who've been in the movement for a long time. I'm a Vietnam veteran. I don't need to empathize with other people. I saw people die and get killed. My own son died after I came back from the war as a victim of Agent Orange. And I just went back to Hanoi a year ago and saw all the children that have been suffering over there. And I worked with refugees in the 1980s. I was a part of the sanctuary movement. I've been a labor activist. I've been a peace movement activist. But peace, to me, isn't about just building a peace within yourself. I don't think there can be a peace with war. And it's about fear. To me, peace is living without fear. And this whole war has been driven with fear. And we're afraid of the other people. We're afraid of the government. Refugees often cannot speak out because they're the ones, their families are still back in those countries. And if they speak out and before somebody, their families can be picked up and arrested and put in jail. During the sanctuary movement, we had some brave individuals who would come forward in that movement. And all their relatives have been killed, so they were not afraid to stand up and speak. I'm no longer afraid of this government. That's why, I think many people in the peace movement are not afraid of this government. But there was one thing during the 1960s that you didn't mention in the ending that war. It wasn't just the people in the street that were protesting. It was when the soldiers in that war refused to fight. And they were in the hundreds of thousands. There were 500,000 deserters during the Vietnam War. And there was the Vietnam Veterans Against the War that spoke out and was in the head of those marches. And people don't know that history. And right now there's Iraqi Veterans Against the War that are following that same model. And there are generals who are saying that they don't believe in this war. So when soldiers refuse to fight, there's no war that can take place. So who are the people that are going? You said something about the idea that there were people that are now, a lot of them are Latino, minority kids, but they're poor white kids going into this war because they're offering them $50,000 in student loans to go to college. And they don't see any future but working for McDonald's, the business model, which I'm not for. I don't think the business model is the model. I think it's the model that's created this war. I think we need an alternative model. If you're going to think outside the box, let's think outside the business model, please. And I think that we need to bring into this discussion is there is a movement out there, and they have been out speaking out. And that is, there is a movement to bring in the Immigrant Rights Coalition into this. We had 500,000 to 1 million people in the streets for the immigrant rights movement. And many of those young people I worked with over the years, I'm also Latino, and was a part of MECHA at this university. I helped do this mural. I created this multicultural center and was a part of a whole group of students that were part of this. And we left institutions behind. And what we need to do is build institutions for people. Zara's biggest issue is that she's talking about millions of refugees. A practical thing would be, is how can you help her build that organization to fund an organization that can reach out to them and go before the UN and through other organizations that we can really do something. So go to her website, contribute money, because it's going to take money to do that. And if you have any support, I know Casey, who works with refugees, Urko, that's in Oregon, can do a lot about helping refugees. But we also need to allow more refugees to come in here. The Vietnam boat people, the so-called boat people that came here, America had to open up its doors. So you can demand that we open up doors for refugees so that more and more can come here. We're slaughtering their people. We need to be able to open up the doors for refugees to come into this country. And the main thing still at the end is this, there is going to be a march, and I am a part of PDX Peace, as there is a coalition. And I believe I'm bad with dates, so that's always, Kelly, isn't it on September 27th? October 27th, right?
October 27th in Seattle.
Seattle.
Regional march. Zara will be speaking, Udars will be speaking. We're organizing buses. If you go to pdxpeace.org, you can find out about that. And we're also talking about next March, the 5th anniversary of the Iraq War. What can we do now? How can we do things differently so that we can bring 50,000 people, not just into the streets of Portland for one day, but get people engaged and involved with all the great peace work that is happening. So if you are online, go to pdxpeace.org, get involved, come to the march in Seattle, come to the meeting the first Monday in December to start talking about, what are we going to do between now and next March.
But if you want people to get involved from other organizations, you actually have to go to those organizations too. When they're out there marching, you got to be in the forefront marching with them. When they have an issue, you got to go to their events and listen to what they have to say. Because if you're going to talk about racism or you're going to talk about some of these issues and you are asking them to come and you've never been to one of their events and are criticizing them, you really don't have a position to say that. You need to be going to their events, and when they see you there standing up for their rights, they'll come out and stand for your rights.
Thank you, and I think thank you.
I thought it was a debate.
Thank you. Actually, we unfortunately have to conclude.
But I think I should at least clarify to the statement. I won't debate, but I should at least get some clarification on it.
Kylo, I'll give you a minute now instead.
Absolutely perfect. I only need 30 seconds. That's what I'm trying to say, is that we need to, listen to the language, that it's not the usual language that we've been doing. So when we hear things like hobby, you couldn't take me seriously to say that every people who are in the peace movement doing this for a hobby, right? What I meant is, there are people that just come in and do part of it and going away. And I use those words in a loose way. When I talk about peace movement is a serious business, I don't mean as a business. Okay? So semantics of the word is very, very careful. We can turn people away by paying attention, misunderstand the semantics of the language. So look at its intention, look at its purpose and where it's going rather than the word itself. We don't want to end up debating on words. We want to debate on ideas, okay? So, but anyway, I agree with everything you said, and those are all wonderful.
Thank you. I want to offer a few points because, we hear this amazing night speakers. Where can we go from here? And I think it's an important question. I want to offer a few things. Center for Intercultural Organizing is launching a 3-year project called Organizing for Peace and Engaging Newcomers. The goal of this project is 3 components. The first goal is to really bring together diverse immigrant refugee community members, such as the panelists that we have tonight, who have a direct experience in war, and talk about how can they be part of the peace movement. how can we expand the peace movement? And we will be hoping to give them discussions, dialogues, trainings, opportunities. The other component of open is also to really have a serious discussion with our brothers and sisters in the peace movement. We know that they have been working hard. It's a very, very difficult job. But also, what we would like to do is then also talk to them and say what it will take for us to work together. And we are already working together, but how can we expand and bring these kind of spaces bigger? And listen to them, their ideas, and challenge them and with respect. Because after all,